Chapter 36. The Kind Jeanne d'Arc. This outfit. Unexpectedly, it's Jeanne d'Arc. Arthur was visibly shocked. He had always known a heroic spirit would appear, and he was tasked with either subduing or resolving the situation. But to think, it would be Jeanne d'Arc. Excuse me, can you please move aside? Jeanne looked at the two young men blocking her way. Both were strikingly handsome, but there was something dangerous about them. Arthur himself had the heroic spirit system veiled, and as for King Gilgamesh, do you really think he'd walk around without his own secrets? Still, Jeanne, unable to see through their disguises, was polite but clearly anxious. Just moments ago, she had found an elderly woman suffering a heart attack on the street. Out of pure kindness, Jeanne immediately decided to carry the woman to the nearest hospital. But now these two stood in her way. She had tried hailing a taxi earlier, but with no money, the drivers had coldly refused. No offense. Jeanne glanced back at the old woman she was helping and grew more flustered. Hello, do you need assistance? Arthur asked. Can you help me? Jeanne responded, almost instinctively. Of course, he nodded. Thank you, Jeanne smiled, visibly relieved. There are still good people in this world, she thought. As for Gilgamesh, she was just dragged along. Arthur had pulled her over, and the King of Heroes was still a bit peeved that this heroic spirit, Jeanne, didn't recognize her immediately. Eventually, all four took a cab. Willingly or not, that's debatable. Gilgamesh had flipped an ancient gold coin, and the driver sped off like his life depended on it. Upon reaching the hospital, however, another issue emerged. The hospital didn't accept gold. The receptionist looked at the gleaming coin and frowned. Gilgamesh, of course, distanced herself from the matter instantly. You save the patient first and keep this gold as a deposit. Is that all right? Arthur negotiated. After a pause, the staff agreed. Once outside, Jeanne turned to Arthur curiously, but how do we get real money quickly? Don't worry, I've got an idea, Arthur replied, glancing at the coin in his hand. Find a gold exchange. But where? Suddenly, his eyes lit up. A lottery booth stood right across the street. Let's buy some lottery tickets. Lottery tickets. Jeanne tilted her head. Arthur led the trio inside. He handed over his last bit of change, 1,000 yen, and bought 3 scratch cards. It's the fastest way to get liquid cash. Let's not question the logic. Will this work? Jeanne asked skeptically. Of course. We've got incredible luck. After all, heroic spirits usually do have good fortune. Well, unless you're a certain lancer. Arthur scratched the first card. 10,000 yen. Not bad, but meh. He muttered. Some people are just ungrateful, huh? Then he glanced at Jeanne's stat screen. Strength, B. Endurance, B. Agility, A. Mana, A. Luck, C. Noble Phantasm, a ++. Not bad at all, he thought. Jeanne quietly prayed as she scratched her ticket. Whether it was divine blessing or luck, who could say? 50,000 yen, she muttered. Arthur patted her on the back. Don't worry, my friend here is ridiculously overpowered when it comes to luck. Really? Jeanne looked curious. Yeah, if luck was graded, he's at least an A. And for lotteries, definitely X. He didn't mean much by it, but Jeanne blinked in shock. Wait, even ordinary people nowadays know about heroic spirit rank classifications. Poor Jeanne, completely tricked by Arthur's casual lie. Gilgamesh scoffed. Lottery, how pathetic. Still, she scratched her ticket. 1 million yen. She tossed the card aside, smirking. Golden rule, remember, the world bends to her wealth. In the end, they walked out with a total of 3 million yen. You guys are amazing, Jeanne exclaimed. That's mostly thanks to my friend, Arthur smiled. Such a waste of time, Gilgamesh muttered, completely unimpressed. You two have a great relationship, Jeanne said cheerfully. Relationship, good, as if. Both Arthur and Gilgamesh snapped in unison, then immediately looked away in embarrassment. Jeanne chuckled. I forgot to introduce myself. I am Jeanne d'Arc, TCH. I am King Gilgamesh. Remember that name, the King of Heroes declared arrogantly. Arthur extended a hand. Arthur Pendragon. A pleasure. Arthur, Gilgamesh. Jeanne mumbled. With everything that had happened, it suddenly clicked, these two were heroic spirits. Jeanne instantly took a combat stance, instincts kicking in. Relax, Arthur said calmly. If we wanted to fight, you wouldn't stand a chance. TCH. Trash, Gilgamesh added as Gate of Babylon flared open behind her, dozens of noble phantasms emerging. Jeanne was stunned. Each weapon radiated power, genuine treasures. So this was the power of the oldest king. Gilgamesh prepared to unleash her arsenal when Arthur held her back. Jean, why are you here? She shook her head. I don't know. My thoughts tell me. I must defeat you to return to Valhalla. That's it. Arthur frowned. That's all I know. Arthur asked, but why do you want to return? I'm not sure, she replied honestly. She, too, felt the strangeness of her mission. Most heroic spirits would never want to go back. So why was she given this strange command? Elsewhere, in the void of the Type Moon world, two mysterious little girl-like figures sat in a floating space. Oops, looks like we made a mistake. It's fine, we sent him to power up anyway. What about Jean? Let him deal with her. Next time, give clearer instructions. Yeah, I got it. Unaware she had been set up, Jean was still pondering her presence in the world. Back with the group, Arthur saw the doubt in her eyes. If that's the case, how about joining us? Join you? Jean blinked. Yes, Arthur nodded. You don't have a specific place to go yet, do you? Come with us. Jean hesitated. I'm sorry, I feel like I still have things to do in this world. I can't leave just yet. She turned and walked away decisively. That's Jean, resolute and unwavering. Gilgamesh clicked his tongue. She's gone. You're too soft. Arthur sighed, watching her disappear into the distance. She said she had something to do. Could it be the marshal? Realization dawned on him, but by then, she was already gone. We'll meet again, Arthur said to himself. Chapter 37, The Power of Faith bonus chapter. Late at night, Arthur stood silently on the balcony, gazing into the distant darkness. Moments ago, a loud roar had echoed from that direction. He already knew the cause. It was Kuritsugu Emiya, Maya Hisao, and Kirei Kotomine. But Arthur had no intention of intervening. He had no interest in Kuritsugu Emiya. If it weren't for Artoria, he would have killed the man long ago. As for Maya Hisao, Kuritsugu's cold lover, her existence meant little to Arthur. And Kotomine Kirei, without Gilgamesh to awaken his true nature, he was nothing more than a wandering wolf without purpose. What difference did his presence make? Suddenly, golden light flashed beside him, and Gilgamesh materialized. Oh, you finally came out. What were you doing just now? Arthur asked curiously. Gilgamesh had returned earlier but ran off to her room with a mysterious package. Of course, Arthur had no idea that the package contained carefully selected women's clothing, courtesy of Gilgamesh. Unfortunately, the only one who had seen it was the stunning beauty reflected in the mirror. Nothing that concerns you, Gilgamesh replied arrogantly, though her eyes darted away slightly, betraying her discomfort. Really, you're mysterious all the time, Arthur said with a shrug, choosing not to pursue the matter. Little did he know, the Gilgamesh before him wasn't the usual one, but rather a beauty in disguise. Just now, Kirei Kotomine went to find Kuritsugu Emiya and the others. Kuritsugu Emiya, Artoria's master. That woman, Arthur muttered. She's just his shield, he said coldly. The thought made him angry. How could Kitsurugu be so shameless? Even if it was part of a strategy, using your woman as a human shield was disgraceful. What a boring man, Gilgamesh said flatly. If Tokiomi Tasaka knew about this, he'd already be scheming, typical of someone obsessed with reaching the root. Though Tokiomi always acted respectfully toward heroic spirits, in truth, he saw them as tools. But then again, who was the real tool? Arthur smirked slightly at the thought. Suddenly, ding dong, a system notification echoed in Arthur's mind. System has detected that the people of Host Kingdom have begun to believe in the host. Generating power of faith. The power of faith. Arthur was surprised. I didn't even die yet, how did I become an object of faith? He didn't realize that due to an order issued by Mordred, he had now become the spiritual pillar of nearly all of his kingdom. The collective power of their belief had reached the threshold. He was on the verge of becoming a god, at least in the eyes of the people. Arthur's eyes gleamed. Mordred, you're really worth loving. But there still aren't enough people in Britain, the faith energy is a bit weak. System, what do I gain from the power of faith? Arthur asked excitedly. Because the host has not yet reached the status of a perfect hero, the power of faith will be converted into a unique class. Ding dong, the host has received a unique class, King Arthur. Effect 1. All of King Arthur's inherent abilities unlocked. Effect 2. All attributes increased by 1 rank, maximum cap, X. Arthur's eyes widened. With this, my stats become Strength, A. Endurance, A+, Agility, A. Magic, C. Luck, My magic stat is a little low, but it's still decent thanks to the magic surge buff. These are strong stats. With this power, I can stand against Gilgamesh without losing. I might not win, but I won't lose either. Gilgamesh was a beast in every class. Who knew how many hidden cards he had? Arthur kept reading the system update. Effect 3. Gain Noble Phantasm, Great Kingdom. Rank: Unknown. Abilities: 1. Kingdom Creation, establish and communicate with your own kingdom. 2. Teleportation, return to your kingdom at will. 3. Knight Recruitment, invite worthy individuals to join the Knights of the Round Table. Once accepted, they are bound by loyalty and cannot betray as long as they willingly accept the role. Arthur almost leapt with joy. This is insane. With this, he could endlessly grow his power base. He had been wondering how to take Saber and others with him, now he had a solution. I can become an invincible king. Though, thinking about Solomon's terrifying strength tempered Arthur's excitement a bit. Still, this was a big step forward. Gilgamesh watched Arthur quietly from the side and shook her head slightly. He's gone mad, she thought. Arthur didn't notice. Overcome with anticipation, he activated the power of faith. Boom! A wave of pure, divine energy burst from him. It wasn't ordinary magic, it radiated holiness and command. Light descended from the heavens, enveloping Arthur. This light, Gilgamesh stared, eyes narrowed. You really did it, I'm impressed. As the light fused with his body, Arthur felt it, his power was rising. All his attributes had risen a level. I feel amazing. Gilgamesh, how do you like this power? Arthur asked excitedly, unable to hide his grin. Impressive. Now, I'd say we're evenly matched, Gilgamesh replied with a smirk. But, she grinned devilishly, did you know, I also have a unique class? What? Arthur froze, then sighed. Of course, Gilgamesh never failed to surprise. Even if newer monsters had appeared, like Tamamo no Mae, Solomon, and others, none had truly dethroned Gilgamesh's legend. Even Karna was just a little behind. So, what is your class? Arthur asked, half expecting to be brushed off. But surprisingly, Gilgamesh answered. Hero King, all attributes are A+. As for my noble phantasms, just assume I've got them all. You damn cheat character, Arthur cursed, but the proud Gilgamesh only laughed and turned her gaze to the distance. In truth, her impression of Arthur had improved greatly. She wasn't a snob, but she did respect strength. And now, Arthur had it. Arthur, meanwhile, was still reeling. He knew what Gilgamesh was capable of. Saber, archer, caster, rider, she possessed multiple class abilities. Combined with her broken stats and vast treasury, she was terrifying. I'll never fight this monster, Arthur swore. Come on, Gilgamesh said. Let's have a drink to celebrate. Don't tell me, drunken truth whine again. No, absolutely not. The two laughed as they stepped away from the balcony. But that radiant light from earlier, it had already caught the attention of everyone below. Chapter 38, Einsburn. How is this possible? On a remote path near Einsburn Castle, a beautiful and divine woman collapsed to the ground, her body grievously wounded. Her form flickered with instability, as if on the verge of disappearing. Why not? A shadowy figure loomed before her, voice cold and mocking. I will never become like you. Hey, look at you now. Where is your lord? Where is your god? Where are they? Quote. Within my heart. Then keep them there, and take that fragile faith of yours, back to the throne of heroes. The figure moved to finish her, but at that moment, boom, a radiant column of light descended from the heavens, illuminating the skies with divine brilliance. This is such a powerful concentration of faith. The shadow was momentarily stunned. In that instant, the wounded woman before him turned into particles of light and vanished. The figure reached out, but was a second too late. He could only catch a faint wisp of radiance falling into his palm. TCH. Ran away. How swift. The shadow narrowed his eyes, watching the light fade. I don't know who it was, but to wield such overwhelming faith, HMPH, must be another hypocritical fool. With that, the figure disappeared into the darkness. Elsewhere. What is this? Such intense energy. Did you see that light? Across the land, people looked up, sensing the divine power. The people's unwavering belief in their king, a new heroic spirit must have been born. A towering figure murmured, eyes narrowed. Now then, who might it be? In a secluded mage's workshop. A knight gazed out the window, watching the distant light. What is that? Lord El Meloy, director of the clock tower, looked puzzled. Despite his vast knowledge, this was unfamiliar. Fate's blessing, the knight replied solemnly. But, it shouldn't appear now. A heroic spirit has already manifested. Suddenly, you still lack discipline. Tosaka Mansion, King, just now, what happened? Tokiomi Tosaka burst into the chamber. Before him, two kings were drinking together leisurely. What's the rush? Arthur Pendragon said, his tone casual. Should you really be asking? Gilgamesh smirked, not bothering to hide her disdain. Don't inquire into matters above your station. Tokiomi lowered his gaze but pushed forward. There's news. About Castor. Arthur raised an eyebrow. That light from earlier, could it be? Castor's gone after the Einspurns. Interesting. He set down his wine. King of heroes, I'll go enjoy the show. Tell my men not to get careless. Gilgamesh waved him off. If he dies, it only proves he was too weak. Arthur gave her a middle finger and left. Gilgamesh stared into her wine with a rare, wistful smile. Enkidu, I may have finally found another amusing companion. Einspurn Castle. Strange, this energy feels familiar. Saber, Artoria, stared into the distance. What's wrong, Saber? Irisfeel asked curiously. She didn't recognize the significance of the light. But Artoria, she knew. Is it you? Have you earned their acknowledgement? Congratulations. Artoria's voice was distant. Whatever she was thinking, she kept it to herself. Suddenly, alarm, enemy attack. They gathered around a crystal ball. Within it appeared a disturbing scene. Castor, madman, someone muttered. Giles de Rais, Gilder, walked calmly through the Einspurn courtyard, surrounded by a dozen children. It was clear he had them under his control. Saber gritted her teeth. She wanted to rush in and save them. But she hadn't received the command. And yet, those children gave her an ominous feeling. They're all hostages, Artoria whispered. Her fists clenched. Giles adjusted his archaic mage's cloak, then looked directly toward their location. As a Castor-class servant, it wasn't hard for him to detect their gaze. Giles de Rais, at your service, he declared with theatrical flair, bowing politely. I pray the Radiant Saint will grant me an audience. Artoria glanced at Irisfeel, but it was obvious, Giles had no intention of waiting. In that case, Giles turned to the children and crouched before them, speaking in a soft voice that masked his cruelty. Run, children, if you fail. He stretched out a grotesque tentacle. No, Artoria shouted instinctively, but he couldn't hear her. Splat, a child's head exploded. Blood painted the courtyard. Giles smiled in twisted delight. Run, little lambs. Jean, why won't you come out? Another tentacle surged forward, aiming at the fastest child. The poor boy ran with all his might, eyes clenched shut in fear. Shing, a silver flash. The tentacle was sliced clean in half. The child opened his eyes, and saw a heroic figure before him. A woman in shining armor, her blade gleaming with divine light. Giles, that's your name, right? You've crossed a line. Lancelot stepped forward. She had sensed Giles' magic and rushed here, but was moments too late. The child's death burned in her heart. She had sworn, before Arthur himself, to protect the weak. And now this. This was unforgivable. Oh, it's you. Giles seemed unconcerned. Shall we see if you can catch me, then? With a swirl of magic, he retreated. Coward, don't run. Lancelot turned to the child, her voice soft but urgent. Hurry to the castle, there are people who'll keep you safe. Then she bolted after Giles, her sword drawn. She would not let this pass. Back inside, Irisfeel could no longer hold back. Her heart ached at the sight of the slain child and the mad Castor. Saber, go, she said, voice trembling with restrained fury. Yes, Artoria answered simply. But the powerful gust of wind as she departed revealed the storm raging inside her. Chapter 39, The Marshal's Anger. Artoria was charging forward, fury blazing in her emerald eyes. Never before had she felt such intense rage. Marshal Giles had crossed a line that no knight could ever forgive. Killing in war wasn't uncommon. Every heroic spirit bore the weight of dozens, hundreds, or even thousands of lives. But to use children, to murder the innocent for power, that was taboo. That demanded justice. That meant the marshal must die. Ha ha, finally, my holy maiden, you've finally acknowledged me. Giles shouted gleefully, having shaken off Lancelot with a burst of magic and now rushing toward Artoria again. The twisted Castor grinned manically. Perhaps no one in this world cherished Jeanne d'Arc more than him, in his own perverse way. But Artoria had no time to entertain his delusions. Without hesitation, the marshal pulled a child forward and injected a torrent of corrupted mana into the small body. The child's face twisted in pain and horror. Boom! The child's body exploded in a grotesque flash of blood and viscera. There wasn't even time for a scream. All that remained was a puddle of plasma. But the true horror had only just begun. From the grotesque remains, the flesh began to writhe and churn. Slowly, horrifying black tentacles emerged, twisting into eldritch abominations. Artoria's eyes widened. These creatures, from another world, someone gasped. A dozen, then dozens more, erupted from the ground and charged like a tide. Any ordinary person would have collapsed in terror. But not Artoria. Her fury was far greater than fear. Magic surged from within her, radiant and explosive. The nearest tentacle beasts were vaporized by the sheer force of her magical energy. Die, caster! Artoria roared, her voice echoing like a war drum. He, my holy maiden, the marshal cackled, unfazed by her power. He raised his arm, summoning wave upon wave of tentacle monstrosities that surged toward her in an endless tide. Ha 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 ha, come, let me save you, I don't need your salvation. Artoria charged headfirst, Excalibur flashing. She should have overwhelmed him. With her innate resistance to magecraft and unparalleled skill, the outcome should have been clear. But the marshal played dirty, summoning heroic spirits to interfere. How absurd! Artoria was bombarded from all sides, verbally assaulted by the two kings, crippled in one arm by Diarmuid Uadwine, and now surrounded by a literal army of monsters. Even the assassin-class servants hadn't given her a single clean kill. Where was the protagonist's halo when she needed it most? She grit her teeth. Each time she destroyed one of the grotesque creatures, two more took its place. They were weak individually, but overwhelming in numbers. She could endure, but the children couldn't. She had already seen one perish. She would not allow another. Elsewhere, watching through a scrying orb, Irisviel von Einsborn trembled in horror. Irisviel, Kuritsugu's voice crackled through the communicator, you need to leave with Maya. Now, but what about the children? She asked, her heart heavy. We can't save them if you die. You're their target, get to safety, now. She didn't argue. She'd never disobey Kuritsugu. Still, it hurt, deeply. Every time she was in danger, it wasn't him by her side. This time, he had sent his lover to protect her. Maya Hisao, she knew about their history. Yet Irisviel still followed orders, even as the ache in her chest deepened. Back on the battlefield, the grotesque swarm continued to multiply. Artoria was being surrounded. Swish, swish, swish. Suddenly, cold light flashed, slicing through the abominations. Several tentacle monsters were severed instantly. Who's there? Lancelot. Artoria called out. Call me Lancy. That's what Arthur always called me, the knight replied calmly, stepping forward with her blade ready. Fine, don't worry. Leave your back to me, Lancelot said, solemn and certain. That line, it struck something in Artoria's heart. The Knight of the Lake had once said the same. She had trusted him too. But in the end, betrayal. Be careful, Lancelot shouted, intercepting a lunging monster with a swift, elegant strike. Snapping out of her trance, Artoria returned to the fray. The two knights moved in perfect sync, a deadly duet of steel and light. Monsters fell, one after another. If Giles had nothing else, they'd finish this quickly. But of course, he did. Ha 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 ha, as expected of the saint. But, Giles opened a twisted tome, the text of Lormine City, its pages glowing with abyssal energy. More tentacle beasts emerged. Artoria's eyes narrowed. It's useless, Giles. These things won't stop us. Of course not, he grinned. But they're not meant to. The monsters didn't rush them. Instead, they scattered, toward the children. No, Artoria shouted. Ha 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 ha, now what will you do, Saint? Before she could act, a flash of red light streaked through the battlefield. Diarmuid Uadwine arrived. Need a hand. Artoria's eyes widened. Save the children. No, Lancelot interjected, pointing at the grimoire. That book, it's the core of the spell. Destroy it. Diarmuid's gaze hardened. Understood. He surged forward, brandishing Guy Dierg, the crimson spear capable of nullifying magic. Giles's smirk vanished. Not good. With a burst of smoke, he attempted to flee into the sky. Coward. Diarmuid gave chase. They couldn't afford to let him escape. Now it was up to Artoria and Lancelot. They pushed forward, cutting down waves of beasts, but there were too many. Giles had sacrificed the souls of countless children and women to power his summoning. Strike air. Artoria unleashed a wave of compressed wind with her invisible air, scattering dozens of creatures. But it wasn't enough. They were like ants, too numerous, too scattered. Even Excalibur couldn't cleanse them all at once. What do we do? Artoria growled, watching the monsters slip past them. Lancelot paused, then closed her eyes. She listened. That sound. Do you hear it? Chapter 40. Knights of the Round Table. What is that sound? This sound? Not far away, Irisfeel von Einsborn was running toward Artoria Pendragon, when suddenly a long, resounding horn echoed through the forest. The sound wasn't just noise, it was a battle cry filled with overwhelming passion. It resonated with determination, unshakable unity, and the pride of the strongest combat unit ever assembled. Why does just hearing it make my blood boil? Irisfeel looked off into the distance, her heart racing with confusion. That is the war horn of Great Britain. A man's voice suddenly rang out behind her. Who's there? Maya Hisao spun around, weapons ready. A tall figure stepped into view, Kirei Kotamine. With his gaze lifted to the sky, Kirei spoke solemnly. It seems, he is finally coming. Maya didn't waste time listening. Years on the battlefield had taught her that listening to an enemy's words in the heat of war was a foolish distraction. Victory often came and went in a blink. Kotamine didn't seem interested in conversation either. With a flick of his fingers, left, then right, 4 black keys materialized in his hands, gleaming with murderous intent. Dash dash dash. Meanwhile, near the Einsborn camp. Toot. The horn of war from Britain. Artoria's eyes widened. She knew that sound. Yes, it's them, all of them. Lancelot du Lac stood beside her, his smile tinged with pride. Surely you know the Knights of the Round Table. Artoria narrowed her eyes. Are you joking? She replied dryly. How could she not? But Lancelot only shook his head. No, not these Knights of the Round Table. His expression softened with nostalgia as he looked into the distance. Swift as the wind, fierce as fire. They trample everything in their path, leaving nothing behind. Long spears, great swords, masters of cavalry and archery. One knight can face 100 enemies. Unbeaten, undeterred, the king has remade the Round Table. And now, they had arrived, resurrected through faith itself. Their souls called back across the veil of time by the will of their sovereign. The Round Table had returned, blazing across the forest like a storm. For the honor of our king, charge! Fight, 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 fight! With cries of loyalty shaking the trees, 150 mounted knights stormed into the forest like a crashing wave. They didn't bring the whole order. No, this wasn't a battle worth their full force. Just enough to crush an overgrown puppet like Giles de Rais and his monstrous abominations. Forming a flawless encirclement, they cut through the waves of grotesque tentacle beasts summoned by Castor. The 150 knights never broke formation, not a horse stumbled, not a man hesitated, 150 against 3,000. A ratio of 1 to 20. But not a single knight flinched. Their spears glinted like silver lightning, their shields locked like fortress walls. The tentacle beasts charged again and again, but were repelled by the coordinated strikes and impenetrable discipline of the knights. Within moments, the monsters were trapped, panicked, mindless, tearing forward on instinct alone. But instinct means nothing against trained, disciplined killing machines. These weren't mere knights. These were heroic spirits, ephemeral echoes made real by the prayers of a kingdom. 135 regular heroic spirits average stats at E rank. 15 captains D rank. And 12 elite leaders, the true Knights of the Round Table. Even someone like Diarmuid Uadwin would have found himself in trouble facing them. One by one, the monsters fell. Their cores shattered, their bodies disintegrated. Within mere minutes, 3, 5, who could say, the forest cleared, the blood mist faded, and the hooves of the horses stood tall in silence. Not a single knight had fallen. Artoria watched them in awe. Incredible, to move at a single command, to halt without hesitation, to act as one. This isn't just strength, it's unity. They move like a single body. Like one will. She paused, breath caught in her chest. Terrifying, but also beautiful. Ha! A cheerful voice interrupted her reverie. I never thought I'd hear such praise from another King Arthur. Our king would be so smug if he heard that. Artoria turned to see a knight dismounting. A female knight, clad in steel. Gaheris. Lancelot greeted her with a nod. Yes, I was fortunate to be selected to lead the vanguard this time. Gaheris grinned. Still, I didn't expect this King Arthur to be so beautiful. No wonder our king doesn't want to go back. Artoria's expression sharpened. Gaheris, The Gaheris I know was not this, informal. You should choose your words more carefully. Oh, but I find it quite amusing. She laughed without restraint. Lancelot sighed inwardly. Of all the knights, Gaheris was the most uncouth, it wasn't worth arguing. By the way, where is your king? Artoria asked suddenly. He went looking for someone, a woman named Irisfeel or something. Artoria's eyes widened in alarm. Irisfeel von Einsburn, what happened to her? She's being pursued. That's all I know. Without another word, Artoria turned and sprinted away, wind trailing behind her. Still so, earnest, Gaheris said, watching her go. Naive, Lancelot replied softly. But that's part of her charm. You sure you don't want to go after her? Lancelot gave her a deadpan look. Don't be ridiculous. Dash dash dash. At the other end of the forest, Maya Hisao and Irisfeel had tried everything to fend off Kire Kotamine. But it was useless. They didn't know martial arts, let alone Bajiquan, a lethal and ancient Chinese martial art. Known for explosive power and short-range bursts, Bajiquan meant, 8 extremities fist, with techniques designed to crush opponents from any direction. Kire, trained by Risei Kotamine, was a master of it. Against Irisfeel's magecraft and Maya's modern firearms, Kire was unstoppable. His fists shattered barriers, his movements unpredictable but perfect. Every strike landed with purpose. Within seconds, Maya was down, unable to move. Irisfeel stood trembling, magic circuits flaring weakly. You. Kire didn't answer. He calmly walked toward them, his cold expression unchanging. With a single kick, he knocked Maya unconscious. Then, step by step, he advanced toward Irisfeel, eyes locked on her pale, trembling form. Getting closer, and closer. Chapter 41, Jean and Giles. In the depths of the forest, Saber, Artoria Pendragon, continued pressing forward. Suddenly, a figure emerged before her. Lancer. Apologies, Diarmuid Uadwine said with a sheepish smile. I let him get away. Chasing down an opponent and failing wasn't exactly something to be proud of. Then, Artoria narrowed her eyes, shifting into a battle stance. Why are you standing in my way? My master is in danger. It seems he's already clashing with your master, Diarmuid answered grimly. Far off, the battle between Kuritsugu Emiya and Lord El Meloy Archibald, Kenneth, raged on. Kenneth was being utterly outmatched. It's all going according to Kuritsugu Emiya's plans, Lancer muttered, clearly frustrated. Go, Artoria said without hesitation, lowering her sword. She refused to take advantage of such a situation. Her knightly code forbade such dishonor. I apologize for my master's actions, Lancer said earnestly. It's fine, fight for your honor as a knight. Diarmuid placed a hand over his heart and gave a respectful knight's salute. His form shimmered with prana as he vanished, leaving only a breeze in his wake. As Diarmuid left, Artoria pressed forward once more. In her heart, she knew, Kuritsugu Emiya wasn't her priority. Alice was. Elsewhere in the forest, Kotamine Kire silently approached Irisfeel. Without hesitation, he raised a black key and lunged at her. Clang! The black key flew from his hand, embedding deeply in a nearby tree. Kire looked up sharply, only to see a knight astride a white horse, his gleaming silver lance pointed squarely at him. King, Kire murmured with a trace of respect. This woman, don't move, Arthur said coldly. For the strong to bully the weak is a violation of chivalry. And for men to attack women, even more so. But she's not the true master. Kuritsugu Emiya is. Killing her serves no purpose. Irisfeel and Maya Hisao watched in shock. This man, how could he know? What are you staring at? Arthur smirked. I know far more than you think. In the moonlight, the knight's features were both regal and stunning, his presence felt like something out of a myth. Leave. Kire hesitated, but Arthur's words had weight. Keeping Irisfeel alive could confuse their enemies. At that moment, the voice of Hassan Isaba echoed into Kire's ears. The battle is over, only King Arthur and Saber remain here. My master, we must retreat. Kire nodded. He turned to Arthur. Then I'll take my leave. Farewell, King. With that, Kire retreated into the shadows, calmly, without fear. Arthur dismounted, plunging his lance into the ground with a frown. The unfamiliar weapon felt unnatural in his hand. He approached Irisfeel and gently lifted her onto his steed. I'll save you this once. But in return, I'm taking what lies inside you. Arthur placed his hand gently over her chest, channeling his magic. A golden light shimmered through Irisfeel's body. Gradually, an artifact materialized in Arthur's hand. Artoria's scabbard, Avalon. This is it. Just then, Artoria arrived at the scene. Her eyes widened the moment she saw Avalon. She could feel its call, its pull toward her. So, it's here, Arthur said, calmly stowing the artifact away. Thank you for saving Irisville, Artoria said respectfully. Despite Avalon's importance to her, the knight before her had just saved her master. Gratitude was due. No need to thank me. The honor of a knight should never be sullied by pride. Arthur's words resonated deeply with her. A subtle connection had formed between them, two sides of the same coin. The same chivalry, the same ideals. Artoria nodded. Arthur handed her the reins. Take them back. I'll be going now. Thank you again. No need, he replied, already walking away. Your Avalon, I'll return it. But not just yet. Artoria watched him go, puzzled. If you're going to return it, why not now? Still, she didn't question it. Arthur was another version of herself. She knew she could trust him. Artoria picked up Maya, mounted the horse, and rode away. Meanwhile, in a dark, winding path. Still running? Where exactly do you think you're going? A shining knight chased a man in tatters, Giles de Rais. The knight was Gawain, one of King Arthur's knights of the Round Table. Giles was clearly exhausted, tripping as he fled. Damn it, if I had more mana, you wouldn't have caught up to me. But now, drained and broken, Giles had nowhere left to run. You desecrated my king's honor. And now, I, Gawain, Knight of the Round, will send you to Valhalla myself. Gawain drew closer, lance raised. Like hell you will. Giles bellowed and summoned a horde of writhing, grotesque tentacle abominations with his remaining prana. TCH. These things again. Gawain didn't even blink. Swish. In a flash, a dozen monsters were annihilated, reduced to mist by a single sweep. Gawain stepped before Giles, sword raised. Farewell. Giles shut his eyes in resignation. But the death blow never came. A radiant battle flag slammed into the ground between him and Gawain, stopping the fatal strike. Jean, Giles gasped, eyes wide. Standing before him was a beautiful maiden clad in silver armor. You came to save me. I knew you hadn't forgotten me. Giles cried in joy, trembling. Of course, my Marshal. How could I ever forget you? Jean smiled, her voice gentle. But, that other one wasn't you. No, she only looked like me. Gawain scowled. Their banter irked her deeply. Jeanne d'Arc, I didn't expect you to fall so far. Falling is simply embracing my true self. You dare defy my king by saving this man. Gawain roared. Then you too shall be erased. She raised her blade, brilliant light gathering at its edge. Excalibur Galatine. Type. Anti-army noble phantasm. Rank. A+. Range. 20 to 40. Max targets. 300. Jean didn't intend to engage her directly. With a sharp whistle, a massive dragon soared through the skies toward her. She hurled Giles onto the beast's back and leapt up after him. You won't escape. Gawain swung down her shining sword, light burst forth, like a miniature sun tearing through the sky. The force sent shockwaves through the air, slashing the dragon's path. Jean grimaced, feeling the full weight of the noble phantasm's power. With a surge of mana, she shielded herself and Giles. Swoosh! The beam of light cleaved the dragon in two. The beast howled in agony and crashed into the sea below. Gawain scoured the shoreline. Strange, no sign of their bodies. Did they escape? He narrowed his eyes, searching, but Jean and Giles were nowhere to be seen. With no more leads, Gawain turned away, his blade still gleaming in the moonlight. Chapter 42, Jean and Black Jean. Arthur returned directly to Tokiomi's residence. Standing before him were Lancelot, Bedivere, Gaheris, who had just gathered the team, and Gawain, who had recently returned. The Marshal was now incapacitated, so there was no need to protect him for the time being. Looking at the four of them, Arthur asked with visible confusion, how could the four of you let Giles escape? He's just a caster. How could he possibly slip past you? Lancelot sighed and responded with a heavy heart. He was still clever. For the sake of the children he captured, our formation was disrupted. If we pursued him recklessly, the children would have died instantly. So, we had no choice but to let him go. Gaheris didn't show much expression. Her mission was to rescue the children, and Arthur couldn't really fault her for that. As for Bedivere, she had simply been having fun. None of it really concerned her too deeply. Gawain, however, was the most frustrated. She had been on the verge of taking down Giles when suddenly, a woman appeared. A woman who somehow managed to rescue him. Gawain couldn't even describe the bitterness she felt. Seeing Gawain's aggrieved look, Bedivere chuckled and said, "Relax, your majesty. It's not Gawain's fault. Giles de Rais can't stir up too much trouble on his own. The bigger issue here is, who was the Jean that saved him?" Arthur frowned. With Jean d'Arc's temperament, she would never help someone like Giles, not after knowing what he's done. Frankly, it would have been more expected for her to execute him on the spot. Could it be? Arthur considered a possibility. Bang bang bang. Suddenly, someone knocked on the door. Odd, who would be visiting at this hour? Bedivere moved to open it, and the moment she did, a woman collapsed at the doorway. Bedivere caught her just in time. Gawain saw the woman's face and instinctively drew her sword. Stay alert. Her blade shot toward the woman without hesitation. Clang. Arthur quickly intercepted Gawain's attack and stepped forward. He knelt beside the unconscious woman and examined her closely. "Your Majesty," Gawain questioned, "this isn't the Jean you just saw," Arthur said gravely, sensing the frailty of her spirit. He immediately began channeling magic into her to stabilize her fading existence. "It seems, the Black Jean has truly manifested." Arthur's expression turned serious. He knew that Jeanne d'Arc altar, the corrupted version of Jean, was supposed to be born from Giles' wish upon the Holy Grail. But then, why had she appeared here? As Arthur pondered, Jean stirred and slowly opened her eyes. "You're awake." Her blurred vision focused on a warm and familiar voice. Golden light shimmered around the man who spoke to her. "Jean, come on, don't sleep. Stay with me." "Arthur, is that really you?" she murmured. When Jean recognized the figure in front of her, her one and only king, she sighed in relief and nearly drifted back into unconsciousness. "Stay with me. Don't fall asleep." "But, why do I see myself?" Her weak voice trembled with emotion. Clearly, this detail was of great importance to her. Arthur didn't have an answer. But knowing that Shuru Emiya had come from the future, encountering overlapping timelines didn't surprise him much anymore. Still, how had Jean fallen to her corrupted self? She was a formidable heroic spirit. To be defeated like this, there were too many questions. Elsewhere, on an abandoned bridge. "Jean, you actually came to save me." Giles cried out in rapture. "I knew you wouldn't forget me." "Oh, Marshal, of course I haven't forgotten you," Jean Alter said with a wicked smile. "But I'm here on a mission. Will you help me?" "Help you?" Giles instantly turned serious. "Jean, I would give my life for you." "Thank you, Marshal. This is my duty." "Then we need to plan our strategy." "Of course. My master is someone whose personality matches mine perfectly. Let's find him first." "Very well." With that, Jean Alter and Giles vanished into the night sky. But could the two of them alone take on the heroes that now stood in their way? That remained to be seen. However, the true terror wasn't Jean Alter. In a realm of total darkness, a terrifying presence stirred. Jean, or rather, the corrupted Jean. "I wonder if I can use her to break free of this Holy Grail. If I can reach her." The shadow disappeared, vanishing in an instant as the overwhelming darkness within it receded. Who was this figure? Even Arthur couldn't have predicted that such a dangerous unknown lurked just beyond reach. Jean Alter, whose power remained unmeasured. The mysterious shadow, whose intent was even more dangerous. And countless powerful heroes standing in opposition, Arthur's path forward was far from hopeful. Peace returned, momentarily. Arthur's power of faith was slowly fading. One by one, the knights of the Round Table shimmered like stardust and faded into the night. "Your Majesty, we take our leave. Remind Mordred not to forget my orders." "Of course," Gawain replied. Then she too vanished into radiant motes of light. Bedivere bowed briefly to Arthur. After receiving his nod, she also vanished. Only Jean remained, asleep at Arthur's side. Well, and Gilgamesh, who had quietly left unnoticed. That day had been a whirlwind. Director Geraint was crippled, Jean lay critically injured, and Arthur had secured Avalon from Irisfiel. There was triumph, but also great loss. And yet, one man found himself utterly lost, Geraint Kotamine. He stood silently, staring at the vibrant night market, unmoved by the beauty around him. "Do I have a dream? What is my purpose?" he murmured. Sadly, there was no one to answer him. The Golden King who might have saved him had other matters to attend to. So, who could awaken him from his daze? Just then, a dark figure approached, unseen and silent. Chapter 43, Encounter with Iskander. On the street, a man and a woman were walking slowly. It was Arthur and Lancelot. Logically speaking, a man and a woman shopping should be envied by many people, but unfortunately, the man's face did not look happy at all. I said, Lancey, why did you suddenly drag me along to go shopping? Arthur looked helplessly at all the boxes he was carrying. Men always become a walking shelf when shopping. Even Arthur was no exception. In daily life, Arthur and Lancelot were very good friends. Why, isn't it just to accompany me to buy some clothes? Guinevere really likes the clothes here, and a lot of people asked me to help pick things up. A lot of people, yes. Guinevere, Gaheris, Kay, and Gawain too. The most outrageous ones are Gawain and Gaheris. They actually said that because of my mistake, I must compensate both of them. It wasn't even my fault, and I didn't kill Giles. Why should I take the blame? Lancelot's little face was full of angry expressions, which made Arthur smile bitterly. Since he could summon them, almost everyone had a copy of King Arthur's biography. Last time, Lancelot complained to him that the good wine in her house had been nearly snatched away by those people, saying they wanted to punish her. Also, Bedivere told Arthur that because of the content in the legend of King Arthur, Mordred was now being forced to learn kingly etiquette and the Knight's Code every day. Mordred was utterly miserable now. Arthur just smiled at this. These people were very clear in their minds. Nothing serious would happen. It was nice to see them happy once in a while. Arthur had no choice but to look around helplessly. At that moment, a strong man entered his field of vision. Next to him was a young man with a wronged expression. It was Iskander and Waver. Hurry up, grand strategy is on sale today. If you go late, you won't be able to get it, Iskander shouted with heroic enthusiasm. Arthur, standing to the side, couldn't help but feel a bit helpless. Hey, isn't that Iskander? Arthur greeted. King Arthur. Haha, what a coincidence. Are you here for grand strategy too? Looks like there's one more obstacle to my conquest of the world. Iskander called out with a hearty laugh. Grand strategy, not interested. And look, Arthur pointed to the store. On the display, a big, sold out, sign was posted. It seemed Iskander had arrived too late. What? It's gone. Looks like it's time for the world to witness the king's way of conquest. Arthur broke into a cold sweat. Just for a game, was it really that serious? He made a helpless call and asked Tasaka Tokiomi to take care of it. With his status, getting a game wouldn't be too difficult. Haha, thanks, brother. In that case, I'll invite you to my banquet. How about it? Your banquet? Of course. Who's going to be there? Just you and me. No fun. Arthur shook his head. Just the two of them. What's the point? Why not invite everyone instead? Invite everyone. Iskander paused. Yes, we'll have a king's party. Oh, this scene again. Arthur mused inwardly. Artoria, will you challenge me again this time? Iskander didn't think too deeply about it. He genuinely loved the hustle and bustle. In that case, Arthur, let's meet at Einsburn Castle tonight. Arthur nodded. See you there. Of course. Iskander left excitedly. Arthur turned his head. Strange. Where's Lancey? Looking to his side, he was surprised to see she was no longer there. Arthur was just about to look for her when he saw something. A beautiful and energetic girl stepped out of the clothing store ahead. Wow, that beauty is stunning. The people on the street looked at Lancelot with envy. Lancelot casually walked up to Arthur and winked at him. Arthur was momentarily stunned. Lancelot was wearing women's clothes, a proper lady's dress. What, are you dumbstruck? No, I'm just amazed by your beauty. You're very sweet. Arthur looked at Lancelot curiously. It was odd. Lancelot usually wore neutral outfits and carried herself with confidence, always insisting she wouldn't act like a little woman. Today, she was in a skirt. Tisk, what's so surprising? Lancelot left Arthur's side. Looking at her back, Arthur seemed to recall something, but he shook his head. It shouldn't be, he said to himself, remembering a phrase from long ago. When a woman takes the initiative to change herself in front of you, it means she's in love with you. Arthur didn't believe it. He knew this girl too well. How could she possibly like a man? In reality, Arthur didn't know that in Lancelot's heart, she had begun to realize. The one she truly liked might be the king who had fought beside her countless times, the king who bled and came back just to carry her wounded self, and the king who, despite his own feelings, gave Guinevere to her so she could be happy. Lancelot had slowly come to understand. Watching Arthur's actions for Artoria and Jean had made her reflect on her own emotions. Why had she wanted Guinevere from Arthur back then? Maybe, deep inside, as a woman, she simply didn't want to see another woman become his before her. Arthur, what is it? I want to go back. Arthur nodded. He had always respected others' wishes, especially Lancelot's. Seeing that Arthur agreed, Lancelot smiled, both happily and with hesitation. This time, she was determined to understand her feelings. But how would she explain this to Guinevere? Whatever, let's die trying. Lancelot clenched her fists, finally making up her mind.